Hello everyone, this is the T8SG Plus, the jumper radio, and this, as it says right here, is the multi-protol. This is the second iteration of the original jumper T8SG, so plus regular, and one reason why I wanted to bring that out is so you can see the different form factors, but also this radio also has these chips as you see printed below, but it doesn't print it on this screen. You also get an opportunity here to see the different screen sizes. Hopefully that comes through. If you see a flickering on either screen, that probably has to do with the refresh rate on my phone or the frame rate not matching up with the refresh rate on the screen. But here's a little look at the top view. You can get to see how big or small it might be. And side to side as well. And they're very, very comparable, but one of the things that I didn't like about this radio, and I have used it quite extensively, is the buttons don't always register. So that gets to be a little bit of a nag. I didn't find that to be the case on this one. I found the buttons to be very responsive, so they've used better buttons in the Plus than they did in the original. It's still very usable in the original, but it gets to be a little bit of an annoyance, especially when you're entering in a long name of a craft for a model number or something of that nature. You also notice that this one has the dials on the top, whereas this one has it on the side. That might be useful for planes or other features. We also have additional switches here on the top. These are 2-position switches, and the rest are 3-position switches. Whereas on the jumper, we have 3-position switch, 3-position switch, 3-position, 3-position. So we have 2 extra switches. I do wish on this one it was a momentary switch on one of these. That would be a nice feature, and that would rival what we have on the Tyrannuses. But I wanted to bring that out so you get a chance to see the screen differences. Also, the off button works a little bit differently than you might expect. It's not real long and annoying like the QX7, the Tyrannus QX7. So single quick press turns it on. You see our deviation version there. And then like a 2-second and then off. And there you go. As far as the form factor goes, the plastics that they use here do feel very comparable to this one. It doesn't feel like it's, uber thick or anything like that nature. It feels kind of the same. The weight does feel a little bit more in that one, but that could be the gimbals that are in here. It is supposed to have M9 gimbals, and I can't tell the difference. I can't tell the difference between this and this. I don't feel it. Either I'm not sensitive enough to it, or it pays off in the long run. Maybe your gimbals don't wear out. I'm not certain what the big holler is about the M9 gimbals, but I know that there have been reviews on just the gimbals itself, so some pilots prefer them quite heavily. You do see where I've added some neoprene foam. I got a roll of this off of Amazon. I think it was like 19 or 20 bucks, whatever. And I really like this stuff because it gives you some extra grip. I'm a pincher, so I don't use my hands to hold onto it and thumb. So for me, this is nice, and you'll see that on other radios as well. This one doesn't necessarily feel slick by any stretch, but I do think for my own comfort, I would probably put some on this on the side and around the back. And here we also see we have the DIY box where you can put another module. Maybe you want to do a long-range module or something of that nature. It clips in here just like any other module. This is our battery bay. It has a lift hatch here, and you can see inside I've got a little 2S, and we've got a balance lead. It does come with a battery tray just like this, so you can use AA batteries, and you can power it that way if you want, but I wanted to go with a LiPo, and obviously I don't have the right size of LiPo in here, and because I don't have the right size of LiPo, it doesn't really balance very well. I think you need a little bit of heavier battery, and that would help. If you could get something that fits perfectly in there, I think that would probably be ideal. I have yet to find that battery just as of yet. Another bonus that you may want to be aware of is for packing purposes, the antenna does come off. That means you can pack it more discreetly. You don't have to worry about snapping this connector off. Also, you may find that this yields lower range, and you might want to go to a higher gain antenna, but that is something you'll have to experience in your own flight environments. Obviously, we have a hatch here or a handle here on the back, which is quite handy. You can also attach a bar for setting it down at an angle. We have our audio port and our USB port. I don't know why they've used the particular USB port they did. They could have went with the micro, which is a little bit more standard. Like I said, we have 3-position switches all across the front, and then we have these 2 in the back, and then we have these turn dials. As far as the switches, they feel the same as they do on the original to me. They sound a little bit different, so it could be either the sound of the metal, or they could be slightly more substantial, but they might be slightly more substantial. When I pull on them, I still get the same amount of wiggle. I'm kind of off screen over here with it. I actually prefer a mechanical switch here. I like to turn it off. But as far as switches go, this isn't as nearly as annoying as the QX7 from the Tyrannus. That one had a really long press, and then it would have a little display on the screen, and then it would go off, and then you could let go. So I do like this implementation a little bit better. Of course, we've got trim switches here. They all feel nice. They feel solid. They don't feel like they're going to move around on us or break. And these buttons are very clicky, and you can definitely get a tactile response when using them. I've been using Deviation TX for quite a while. Some of you who've been around a long time know that I started out my first hobby grade remote here recently. I have some old FM stuff, but this Devo 7E I modded, and it was one I used for quite some time. I did put Deviation TX on here as well, and you use the Devo Diffuse application in order to flash this. And we have some buttons. This is a good radio, but it doesn't have all the modules that these have. You have to add them yourself, which is, I added one in particular that I really wanted at that time. With this particular radio, once you put Deviation TX on it, it can run Spectrum, and that's what I initially did. But this gives you an idea of the size difference if you're familiar with the Devo 7E. And it does sit nicely and flat. We've got a little bit of a wobble there. Boom, 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 boom. Not quite as flat as the Devo, but that has to do with the smaller bottom, I suspect. The next radio we'll go ahead and quickly compare it to is the 10, which is kind of my personal favorite radio as far as the size and the sticks and everything goes. I've been trying to get used to my Tyrannus X90 Plus, but I do find that this one is about the ideal size for me. So it is the one I use most of the time, but not always. But you get a little comparison there. There. And there. Of course, this radio ranges. I think I bought mine off of eBay for about $95, $96, and then I added a 4-in-1 module to it as well. And I've since replaced that 4-in-1 module with a module that goes in and replaces the stack, or the standard TX that's, replaces the standard TX that's inside. So I can basically do everything with this one that I can do with that one. It's just in a different form factor. And the last one that we'll do a quick comparison is my Tyrannus X90 Plus. The Tyrannus is a much more substantial radio, and it is much heavier and thicker in just about everything. It's kind of an all-in-one, ready for any sort of RC flying. And you can see it's pretty huge compared to the jumper. And you see I've got my foam on there as well. And I do have the iRange module in there as well. So I can do Spectrum on that one as well as FR Sky. Let's go ahead and turn it back on. And you can see we've got a model up here. And I will follow this video up either the same day or the next day with what I think is the primary tutorial that you're going to want with this, and that's how to activate these 3-position switches. Because by default, they are not set up within the radio. So to get 3 different values so that they register with Betaflight in your vehicle, you're going to need to set this up in the mixer. So that video will be following here very, very shortly. But I wanted to just pop into the menu, primarily for the purposes of showing you we have the About, which shows us which version we're running, in case you wanted to look that up. And I'll link down below to the Deviation TX website and the supported protocols and all the flying machines that go with those protocols. Let's go up to the model menu. And we'll go down here. You can get a whole bunch of different icons off of that website, and you can load them onto here so you can have different appearances for vehicles. Maybe a tiny hoop looking thing, maybe an alien, maybe you can even replace the splash screen that comes on when it loads. Maybe you want to put your pilot name or something on there. But this is the primary feature I wanted to show you, and here is that this one can supposedly power up to 150 milliwatts, which I believe is more than the Tyrannus and other stock radios can do. I believe they go up to 100. So technically, if it does that, you should be able to get better range. I have never had a range problem with the standard jumper TSHE. But I don't do extreme long range flying either. I have gone out for some range tests, and I've gone out around 300 meters and it's been fine. Had to go line of sight, of course, because I was doing FPV with that. So that's something to keep in mind there. That's one feature. And then we'll quickly go through our different protocols here. They may mean something to you. Of course, you can reference this video and then look on the website on Deviation TX for what machines go to those protocols. And when I'm referring to machines, I'm just not talking about receivers, because the machines themselves, some of the what we tend to call toy or retail grade quads, they have their own protocols oftentimes, and you may have a few of those and want to fly them with this instead, give you a little bit of a different flight experience. FlySky. Now I can tell you from experience, when these radio protocols don't work, when the chip inside doesn't work, you'll have an asterisk by that, and you'll probably get a warning when you boot up. There we have the FrSky, which is the older protocol. We have the D8 protocol, which they call V8, and then we have the X, which would be for your XM and your XM Plus. Got some Futaba. I don't know what SLT is. Some of these other things we just have to look up. SEMA X, one of my first quads, SEMA X5C. I believe I had a CG 022, not a 23 though. That was a little tiny toy grade quad. Bang Toys, we used that on the channel recently with the Jumper X, I think it was X68T or 68XT, one of those two. It was didn't fly very well. iNav, Q303, GW008, on and on we go. Okay, we finally reached the end. And just in case you were wondering, you can set the different channels. Typically, you want to go to at least 7. At least that's what I like to do, because then I like to use my arming switch, my mode switch, and my beeper. I don't tend to use these switches up top, but you might. Now, I need to talk about one other thing, and that is the sticks. Hopefully you get an idea of the sticks. Here, let me push this one up to middle point and how they're positioned. Because if you arm like I do with this switch, I always recommend that the arming switch be the easiest switch to hit. That way you can disarm quickly when you have a crash, and therefore you decrease the opportunity of a big amperage spike and blowing an ESC. So I usually arm down, and I am a pincher, like I said. If you're a thumber, these switches are going to be fine. They're going to stay clear and out of your way. You won't have any issues with it. But as a pincher, this is what I want to draw you to. If I go clear to the top, I have to start to angle my knuckle down. See how my knuckle comes down as I touch that switch in order to get to full throttle. Now for me, that's likely to cause a little bit of yaw, one way or another, or it's going to cause me to disarm. So again, if I put that switch down, and if I keep my curve on my fingers, and I go up, I disarm, and that's not a good thing. Give you an idea from a profile. The space that's in there, hopefully you can see that. I'll put my finger up here as a bit of a reference point. There's just not enough room between there. Now, you might be able to get sticks that are longer, and I think if you were over the top like this, that you could get up to full throttle and you go right over the top of the switch. I can still feel it on the back side of my finger, but you will be able to get over the top of it. You can extend these sticks, but I've already got the throttle stick up pretty dang high. You see there's just a little tiny nub still available to me to thread the top piece on. And while we're here, let's go ahead and get a measurement on the sticks. So if we measure down at the base below the threads, looks like we're looking at 2.5 plus or minus. So that'll give you an idea of the threads that you need to get for replacement sticks or knobs if you need to. So I just pulled this off of the original jumper. And it threads just fine. And you'll see that this is a little bit taller of a stick. So you get a few millimeters, maybe 4. So this just might be the trick. I believe I got this from Banggood, and I will try to locate that and link it down below if you would like different sticks. And I do suggest different sticks. I'm not overly impressed with these. They're metal. They'll be fine, I think, but oftentimes as pilots we kind of identify with a certain kind of stick. Let's jump over to the Devo 7E. I'll take its top off here. This is a really long stick end. This would actually be my preference. I use high rates and small stick movements, but unfortunately that does not work. So do not buy them if they say that it's compatible with the Devo series of radios. And lastly, the stick ends that come on the Taranis X90 Plus which are kind of nice and kind of very pointy. But unfortunately, they are too big as well. So you'll need to find these, and I'll link them down below. I'm sure they're on my order page. You just have to look on my account if you want to get different stick ends. And I suspect that I would be ordering more stick ends for my purposes and my use. If you're interested in this foam, I'll go ahead and find that off of Amazon. It could be available from other places, but that's where I got is Amazon. And if you have any doubts about this thing slipping out of your hands, now I don't use a lanyard either. I tend to just hold it, and I'm kind of in my lap, kind of against my stomach or my chest, and that's why I kind of feel the need for that. You may not feel that way, but that's one of the things that, having started with the Devo 7E, they've got these rubberized grips around the edges, and that was genius, and we have yet to see another radio do that, or at least another radio that I've seen. And I wish more would. There is battery monitoring, and you'll hear it beep. It has an internal beep or a vibrator, a little motor that vibrates, so it does the and you hear that when you shut it down, and when you turn it off, it does that as well. So you can set up telemetry, and you can probably include that vibration in your telemetry if you want to include that in your particular setup. Deviation TX is very, very flexible. It's an open source program. You're going to find all sorts of information available for how you do a number of different things. But this does not have a speaker. This vent, don't let it fool you, is not a speaker. I don't believe there's a single radio out there that runs Deviation TX that has a speaker in it, so no voice. They do have a project for voice. Last time I saw that was probably about 8 months ago, and it involves you wiring up a speaker inside and doing various things. I just really wasn't into that, because the last thing I want to do is ruin a radio, because working on those little traces in there, they're really not meant to be soldered on very much. You can do it. I've done it, but I just want to be cautious when I do those things, because I don't like breaking radios. It's funny, we break quads all the time and we just repair them and go fly them again, but I feel a little bit differently about a radio. I think the way they come is nice and loose. I only bring that up because when I got the Taranis X9D Plus, I felt those sticks were very stiff, and I like to kind of have free flowy, and I also don't like a heavy middle part. I like to feel it, but I don't want it to really notch there too much. So I had to do some modifications to my Taranis. One was to really loosen up the tension on everything so they became more loose and free flowy. Did a hot glue or silicone glue to make the center a little less predominant when I was flying, because I really didn't like that. And that's personal preference. That's up to you, but I just wanted to let you know that this does not have that heavy center position like you'll find in the Taranis X9D Plus. Like I said, there'll be another video coming out very, very soon, either right after this one or the following day, about how to set up these 3-position switches so that you can use them on your vehicle. If there are other things that you would like to see done, tests, I can do a range test, but I don't generally go out beyond 300 meters just because I don't have long range equipment. I think if you're going beyond, a couple hundred meters, that you probably are looking at long range. That isn't necessarily what this is, but it will give you reliable range probably within that distance. If there are things you need to know about how to set up the switches to do other things, I can sure investigate that and make a tutorial. If you're interested in those things, hit the thumbs up button, leave your comment down below. I'll gather up the things that are most likely to occur and have the most weight behind them with other people wanting to see the same thing, and I'll make a video on it. So that is the Jumper T8SG Plus, a nice little radio, one I will get some longer sticks and I hope to use. It's nice and small, so if you like to pack lightly, this might be a radio you want to investigate. If you don't want to necessarily have to go to a particular brand of radio, whether it's Fly Sky or Spectrum or FR Sky, you can get this and fly them all. It used to be the fact that we used to see certain ready-to-fly quads that would come out with a particular receiver ready first, and then if you didn't fly that particular protocol, then you had to wait until yours came out. This would solve that problem, not that we see that much anymore. So leave your comments, questions, hit the like button. Let me know that you're interested in more information about this radio. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.